Hi, welcome to week 2 of our Thanksgiving cooking series. Today we're going to go over how to properly brine a turkey, finish a pan gravy with the stock we made in last week's installment. Our first step is making the brine. We do have a nice simple recipe in our Thanksgiving guide that can be found in our meat and seafood departments if you'd like to make your own, or we also sell them as well at both stores. We're going to use the pre-made mix for today. The first thing you want to do is start by bringing your water to a light boil or simmer. Then we're going to take the mix and we'll slowly add that inside and whisk it. And really what you're looking for is for the salt to dissolve. Okay, so our water's right where we want it to be. So we're just going to slowly add this into our liquid. What we have, it's mainly a mixture of salt, sugar, and some nice spices. All right, now that we're fully dissolved, we're going to cool this down. There's 2 ways you can do that. You can either just transfer it and just leave it at room temperature for an hour or 2, or put it in the refrigerator to chill down. Or since we're going to be adding a lot more water to this pot, you can always just add some ice to bring it down quickly, so you can go right into the process of covering the turkey. So today I'm going to show you how to fill a brine bag. We sell these also at both locations. We usually have a nice holiday section at the end of one of our aisles in the store, so you can pick one of these up. So, open up the bag. If you have a large stock pot or any sort of large vessel, to kind of get it in there, and just fold it along the sides. We're looking good there. We have our turkey. This is about an 18 to 20 pound turkey that we've taken out of the bag, dried it off a bit with some towels, so it's ready to go in the bag. I'm going to add a few fresh herbs to the mix, so before I start handling the turkey, it's a good time to sort of add any extras into the pan, so you're not going back and forth to the wash station. So we're going to add a little bit of savory, some sage, a few sprigs of thyme, and rosemary. Now I'm going to add our brine in first, a little bit. It's going to help loosen the herbs up so they don't just all sit on the bottom. Put that inside. Now we're going to take our turkey, put it inside. Okay, so turkey's inside. So now I'm just going to lift the bag up a little bit. What this is going to do is it's going to give us a little bit more volume to put the rest of our liquid in. So we're looking to add 6 quarts of water to the brine over the turkey. We put about a quart of ice in there, so I have 5 quarts of water ready to go inside now. So we're just going to gently put that in. Again, move the bag around. You can lift it up a little bit. The water will start to get inside the turkey. It'll sink down to a lower level. And what the next step is, we're going to transfer this to a clean sheet tray, or a pan with sides. We're going to seal it up, and then it's ready to go into the refrigerator. We got a nice clean pan. What we're going to do now is we're going to lift this up a little bit so we can seal across. Okay, it's feeling like we got a good seal, so we're going to gently take it out of our pot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this turkey, we're going to lay it down inside the bag. We're going to roll it, turn it over a few times, get all that liquid inside the bird, and this is ready now to go inside of our refrigerator. Length of brine, anywhere from 12 to 24 hours, depending on how much space you have the day before the holiday. A good tip, if you're going to brine it for 12 hours overnight, I would definitely, you want to turn it a few times, just to make sure all the brine is getting distributed correctly. Okay, now we're going to move on to making our pan gravy. Right here, getting lightly warm, we have our stock that we made last week that I took out of the freezer yesterday. This is something you can obviously do, make a few weeks in advance like we mentioned, and then pull it out a few days before you need it. So this is looking great. We have a turkey that we roasted a little earlier. We're also going to be using a lot of these pan drippings, as you can see. Lots of flavor there. We put some nice veggies and aromatics around our bird. But what we're going to show you right now is how to make the roux, which is going to be the thickening agent for our gravy. It's a classic thickening technique It's a lot more nuttier than using a slurry, which is a mixture of cornstarch and water. It just gives it a much more consistent and smooth and silky gravy flavor and consistency. So first step, we're going to add some butter into our pan. Move it around. We don't want it to burn, as this is going to be a nice slow cooking process. So if we get a hot pan, we want to move it around a little bit. This is perfect. See, it's a nice bubbly foam. So we're just going to let that melt down for a few minutes, and then we're going to add in our flour. Okay, now we're ready to slowly stream in our flour. We do have in our Thanksgiving meal guide included in the pan gravy recipe, there is a ratio for butter to flour, so you get a nice consistent roux texture. Classic terms, you're looking for wet sand consistency when you're making it. You don't want to add too much flour in at once, because then it becomes too chalky and you wind up having to add more butter in, which is not melted, and it can get a little messy. So a little bit of flour at a time. We want to keep stirring it so we kind of get that wet sand consistency. There we go. So you see, I'm going to stir that around a bit. You can see we're starting to get a little bit, so we're going to add just a little bit more flour into there. It does cook down, so the first stage, the first few minutes of the roux making process, it's better to be on the more liquidy side than the thick side. So we're about a minute in, and this is looking perfect right now. So we're going to turn it down, because what we're looking for here is what you call a blonde roux, so it's a light colored roux. We don't want it to burn or get dark, so we're going to turn it down and just let it slowly cook. Keep stirring it, because it will start to brown on the edges. So we're going to let this go for another minute, and then if we're not quite at the wet sand consistency, we're just going to add just a touch more flour, and then we should be good to go. Just a little bit more. This is looking good, so we're going to just keep stirring this every few minutes for maybe about 5 more minutes. Now this is also something you can make a few days before, cool it down, you put it into a container and put it in the refrigerator, and then it gets nice and hard, and you can actually take little bricks of it off and you can put it into your warm gravy. If it's something you want to make the day of, just make it about an hour before, let it come down to room temperature, and you're going to be fine. Okay, now we're ready to finish the gravy. So there's really 2 approaches you can take. You can add your roux to the gravy, get it to a nice little extra thick consistency, and then thin it out with the pan drippings. Or if you're feeling good about the roux and you're just going to put a little bit at a time and let it go, we're going to add our pan drippings to the gravy and then thicken it to the roux, which is what I recommend, but you could do either. And so I'm just going to start scooping some of these drippings up around the bird. We're going to get it in there. This looks great. Good. Since we made a really nice flavorful gravy, we don't need to put a ton of the drippings in there. We got some really good flavor. We're just looking to get some of that nice fat and aromatics out of the bottom of the pan. But we don't want our gravy to be too greasy either. All right, so you can see our stock. It's at a nice simmer. Lots of herbs, the pan drippings. Smelling great, looking great. So we're going to slowly start to add a little bit of that roux at a time. It's going to take a few minutes to cook out. It doesn't immediately thicken like a cornstarch slurry would. So we put a little bit in. We're going to whisk it in. And then we're going to bring it down to a simmer, and we're going to let it cook for a few minutes. And it'll slowly thicken. We're almost in a good place. Probably going to add just about another tablespoon. Let it cook for another 3 to 5 minutes, and we should be ready to strain. One tip that I would recommend, rather than trying to, if it does get too thick, rather than having to dilute it with water. If you do have some extra pan drippings, or if you save some of that stock, maybe a cup or two of that stock, just in case you put a little too much roux and it goes a little too thick, you can always thin it out with something that has a lot of turkey flavor. And of course, you always want to give it a taste. I like to taste it before I strain it. It's tasting great. I can taste real intense turkey. It's a good consistency, getting a lot of that herb flavor. So I'm just going to let it simmer for a few more minutes. I may add a touch of salt. And then we're going to strain and be ready. So I have a nice fine strainer here. So we're going to gently take some ladles, put it through. If it starts to get clogged up a bit, you can just push it through with the bottom of the ladle until you get to the point where you're comfortable pouring it in. If you're not, then you could just continue to use the ladle, which is fine. See how you can use the bottom of the ladle and just keep kind of turning it, and that's going to push all that good flavor through. A lot of folks give up at this point and sort of just put this into the compost, but this is really where all the flavor's at, right? All this stuff here at the end. You got some good turkey meat in there and all those veggies. I always like to kind of smush those carrots and that celery and push as much of that as I can through, because that's really where most of the flavor's at.